Have you ever seen a dead person?
I've been to a couple funerals, but I don't know if that
That doesn't count.
counts.
Have you ever seen someone dead, like just because they died, like on their own? Have you ever seen either someone get shot, stabbed, hurt, or
No.
no?
Mm-mm.
Just like at funeral.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing too. I see. Here's the thing: is I think that I was subject to that a lot when I was a kid, and so I have this weird thing with death where like I it's never okay, but it became understandable. Here's, I guess, if I had to relate to something, I think it's the way a military person would feel that's been overseas and seen
Okay.
some stuff. Like it probably bothers them, and I hate comparing myself to military people because I've never been in the military. So if I'm wrong and you're listening to this and you're in the military, excuse me. But if I had to assume the way it's like, it just becomes like casual, right?
It's so frequent that it's your normal.
I know a military person who has seen that, and he agrees with me when I talk about this. And he's like, dude, it's kind of like I get scared that one day someone that I'm really close to me will pass away, and I won't grieve because it just becomes I become desensitized. But when I was a kid, multiple times I've seen multiple dead bodies in my life.
Like die in front of you?
Couple of them, yes. Couple of them, no. The one that I'll talk about, no. I had a friend, and I've never talked about this publicly, but it traumatized me as a kid, but I didn't even know it did until I was older. But me and my brother used to live at this apartment building here in town in Las Cruces off Foster.
Okay.
And behind us was a giant bush, and it was an empty lot. There's a bunch of bushes, but there's one that was really big, and there was a bunch of homeless people that would stay there at night. They made a tent, like they caved out. They're creative as fuck. They made like a place where they had all their stuff. And they would go to all the homeless shelters to eat food during the day, but at night they would come back there, and we'd always see them back there. And my mom, my biological mom, and her boyfriend at the time used to always tell us, "Don't go hang out with them. Like you're not allowed to go back there." And so when things would go, when food would go bad in the house, or they made us throw stuff out on the way to the dumpster, instead of throwing it away, we'd go and we take it to these homeless people. Me and my brother. One of them we got to know really well, really cool guy. And he was just a nice, not at all what people stereotype homeless people to be. Just a sad guy, but like was super. We'd bring him fruit, like vegetables. We would always tell him like, "Hey, they told us to throw these away, so I don't know how. Don't eat them and get sick." You know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
here, like these are fine. These are a lot of times it wasn't bad food. It was like apples, and they had food stamps, so they would get more stuff. So like throw these old ones away because we have new stuff, and so we just take them to them. We did that for a long time. My parents found out about it, and they're like, "You cannot take this food back there to them anymore." But I'm saying it nice. They weren't nice. They were like, we'll fuck you up. Like my
Yeah.
mom's boyfriend was not a nice guy. Yelled at us, and so it was like, but we this is one of our friends, and so we told him one day like, hey, like our parents don't let us bring you food anymore, and he's like, no, it's fine. You guys never had to bring me food in the first place. And he was such a nice guy that me and my brother started sneaking it. We would walk to the dumpster and then like leave it behind the dumpster, and then like we'd go inside, and later on, if one of us got to go out, we'd go get it and then take it to him.
Wow.
And then one day, me and my brother both got out, and we went to get the food, and we went to the back, and we found him there. He had died. We found him in the bush. We walked in there, and we were like, hey, he was just laying there. And so, like, as little kids, to give you an idea, I think I was like 11, maybe 10 years old. We went back there, and like he wasn't moving, and we shook him, and he smelled bad. Like there's a distinct smell when someone has passed away, and he wasn't like breathing at all. We knew, and so we had to go back and tell our parents. Who the trauma behind it was, first of all, seeing him that way. He was our friend. And then we got yelled at when we went back. Our parents like, we fucking told you not to go back there and see that guy. And
Yeah.
they called the cops, and the cops had to interview us because we found him, and we're just kids. And I remember just being in trouble for it, that I didn't really get to grieve our friend. You know what I mean? And I didn't really understand death that well. And it was just like, yeah, it was a little weird. And me and my brother like never really talked about it. We just knew like
To this day?
we have like as adults, we're just both like, hey, how crazy was that? Never too deep, but we kind of like have acknowledged it, like that's pretty crazy. But it wasn't until I was older I'm like, that guy was our friend and died. Like no one explained to us what that meant. The investigators weren't explaining anything to us. They were just like, where was
Yeah.
he? How was he? Did you check his pulse?
Probably
Was he
didn't
breathing?
realize
Have you ever seen him do drugs? What drugs have you seen him do? It was like he was like a thing. He wasn't a person.
probably didn't realize that that you cared about him. Because he was just, to them, he was just another homeless guy.
But if you're a police officer and some kids found a body, I don't think it matters if they knew him. Like you would go like, "Hey, are you guys all right?" Like you know, maybe they did to our parents, but nobody did. Not the police, not my parents, no one. And so we're just like, that just happens, and like people move on.
Yeah.
And so like that was the beginning of getting desensitized to things like that. And so like yeah, I'll never forget that. And it wasn't till later on in life like that I was like, how, like, that's crazy. Like, if that's a movie scene in a movie or something that people talk about that ruins their whole life, and we're like, all right, let's just go do our chores and go to bed. Like, it just was never
Now the
acknowledged.
food just goes right in the dumpster.
Yeah, I definitely don't give. Well, I remember for the longest time we're like, what if he died off our food?
Well, yeah,
Like,
I was gonna joke about that earlier because you were like, and then we found him, and I was like thinking like, yeah,
we would
fucked up
always
joke.
think that we're like, what if he died from our food? As we got older, we're like, no, it's impossible because it wasn't like that way. He was already in bad shape and he was doing terrible things, and he had drugs in there when they found him. I'm assuming he overdosed.
Yeah,
Because it wasn't like hot. He had shade. I don't think he dehydrated. I don't know. I don't know what he went through.
who knows? Could
But
have
he,
just been some freak
yeah, but we did think that.
situation.
Another thing that they should ask us about, right? You would think that as kids, you would ask, like, hey, you guys know this isn't your fault, right? Or something.
Yeah, or be like, have an open dialogue to where you can be like, "Do you think we killed him? No. Why would you think that? Bad apple."
Yeah. Yeah. Bad hat, like
So at
a.
least they could say like, "No, he might have had a tummy ache, but he wouldn't have died from
Yeah,
it
and I
or
think that
whatever."
if it was something like that, they would have came back and asked us questions more. I think it was drugs because they
Yeah,
found drugs on him, and I don't think it. They knew who he was, the police officers, which
they
is
usually
common.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, they know who all the homeless people are because they tend to get arrested a lot because they want to have a place to sleep and get food. And so I remember him knowing him like by name, and he was asking me about him. And so yeah, if something was weird, now that I'm an adult, I'm like, all right, that guy for sure that had nothing to do with me. But as a kid, I remember thinking like, was it us? Like,
Yeah.
what was it? But it was like traumatizing, and so it's like I don't remember why I brought up this story, but that's pretty much the gist of it. I guess that's what it was. Is that like the fear of like, and then of course death is a theme in my life and like
Yeah.
dealing
Well,
with
and
it.
you were asking me if I've ever seen any dead bodies,
Yeah.
but other than funerals, no.